What other jobs will be available that aren't available now because of AI?
Well, AI is really still digital. Ultimately, AI can improve the productivity of humans who build things with their hands or do things with their hands, like literally welding, electrical work, plumbing, anything that's physically moving atoms, like cooking food or farming or like anything that's physical. Those jobs will exist for a much longer time. But anything that is digital, which is like just someone at a computer doing something, AI is going to take over those jobs like lightning.
Coding, anything along those lines. Yeah,
it's going to take over those jobs like lightning. Just like digital computers took over the job of people doing manual calculations, but much faster.
What other employment will AI create that aren't now available? Actually, artificial intelligence is still digital. In the end, artificial intelligence, AI, has the potential to increase the productivity of people who physically construct things or perform tasks with their hands, such as plumbing, electrical work, welding, and anything else that involves moving atoms. Jobs that involve physical labor, such as farming or cooking, will continue to exist for a very long time. However, artificial intelligence, AI, will replace vocations like coding and other digital tasks that traditionally involve a person working at a computer. Indeed, it will replace such jobs like lightning, as in how people's manual computations were replaced by digital computers, but much more quickly. Officially, NVIDIA became the first business to reach a $5 trillion market valuation. Following a series of disclosures at its GTC event, and confidence regarding its Blackwell sales to China or possible sales shares surged. Let's welcome Doug Clinton, the CEO and founder of Intelligent Alpha. For more, as always, it's wonderful to see you. Doug, what do you think of NVIDIA's most recent advantage in light of the ongoing concerns about an AI bubble? NVIDIA seems to be saying, well, let's take another leg up here. Julie, that's how it generally goes. Even though it's entertaining, when everyone starts asking, hey, are we in a bubble? Contrary to popular belief, markets typically do unexpected things, like simply keep rising, and NVIDIA is at the forefront of this trend. NVIDIA's actions, in my opinion, reflect the fact that none of the hyperscalers will cut back on capital expenditures to expand their AI infrastructure. As we have witnessed over the past year or more, and I believe NVIDIA is simply taking it into account. In actuality, NVIDIA's figures are certain to keep rising. There is this spark. Perhaps China will open up for Blackwell, which could have further benefits. However, it seems like everything is going fairly well for NVIDIA and the AI industry as a whole at the moment. The Blackwell question is, after all, a maybe at the moment. We are uncertain whether the United States and China will reach a consensus on that. How important is that for NVIDIA then? Even before that announcement, the shares had been rising toward a record. It's probably not fully priced in my opinion. And if I had to wager on Blackwell, I would say that President Trump referred to the fully functional GB200 as the super-duper chip, which is a sort of high-end chip. At this stage, I estimate that between 10 and 20% of it will be totally opened up. Therefore, I would anticipate that NVIDIA's stock would likely rise even further if that were to occur. However, we will be hearing earnings from a number of the hyperscalers this week, and I anticipate hearing more criticism about their insistence on building infrastructure. And perhaps that's what the market is pricing in right now, a little ahead of that bullish talk. Do you believe that spending will pick up speed from here? Or do you believe that it's more about keeping up that spending rate, even though, to be fair, those figures are already enormous? Some of the numbers, in my opinion, are actually probably too low. In particular, the Street's estimates for Google and Amazon's capital expenditures for the upcoming year are 12% and 9%. To put that into perspective, the Street is anticipating roughly 40% according to Meta. I believe that something must give, and I have a feeling that Google and Amazon will discuss further increases in spending. Those Street numbers must appear, in my opinion. Although it might not be an acceleration, I believe it will be a very robust continuation of their current course. Doug, the array of collaborations that NVIDIA revealed at that GTC in Washington, D.C. is also fascinating. We have a list of a few of them up on the screen here, ranging from Lucid to Uber. Nokia was an intriguing and unexpected one. The environment is still expanding, isn't it? OpenAI was at the forefront of the circular economy, which we discussed extensively at first. Now, you have all these other businesses doing all of this that aren't directly related to AI. Does that indicate that there is an increase in the potential for growth, or conversely, the potential for risk? Julie, I believe it's most likely an embrace of the impact that partnerships and announcements of this nature have on stock values. I believe that management teams are well aware of the fact that, well, you're likely to have a nice day on the stock market if you announce a contract with NVIDIA or OpenAI. All right, that's a realistic, somewhat cynical viewpoint, Doug, but how real is it really? People are saying things like, oh, you throw ChatGPT in an announcement and the stock goes up? But will this really result in more earnings for shareholders in the long run? This isn't just NVIDIA, and that is the ideal point, since, in the end, that is all that matters. We have approached the circular economy question in this way. Sure, there are many partnerships, and everyone feels like they are involved. But when we sort of look ahead 3, 5, or 7 years, the only thing that matters is whether this technology generates additional cash flows that make all of this spending worthwhile. This year, it will not succeed. No one should anticipate that it will succeed next year. However, when we consider the longer-term view, which is 5 and 7 years, that will ultimately determine whether or not these alliances and acquisitions are good. The concern is simply, what are we actually going to see from a transaction perspective? When we see ones with, say, an Uber NVIDIA, maybe a little bit outside of that. In my opinion, what does that actually contribute to Uber's main business? These seem to be a little bit more on the very heavy optionality side compared to the ability to add further value to the AI trade. While perhaps there is something there that we aren't yet aware of, you got it? On that front, it's a bit more of a wait-and-see situation. I would like to ask you about another collaboration that was further cemented this week. Microsoft and OpenAI. OpenAI completed its recapitalization and restructuring, and they are now practically equal partners in the new arrangement. Is that exposure, and that kind of formalized exposure, making Microsoft an even better investment for you? Well, Julie, let me tell you that we use huge language models at Intelligent Alpha. We employ those algorithms for our stock analysis and portfolio management. Since we really believe in artificial intelligence, we own Microsoft shares, which our models also favor. Therefore, I believe that Microsoft still offers the best direct access to OpenAI, which is, in my opinion, the most well-positioned AI firm in the world at the moment. This relationship and this announcement, in my opinion, are actually kind of win-win for both parties in that they allow OpenAI to continue raising more money. Due to their enormous capital requirements, they will eventually enlist more capital partners. Additionally, I believe that Microsoft has a significant ownership in what I believe will likely become another multi-trillion-dollar corporation in the coming years. As you said, of course, that multi-trillion-dollar corporation will likewise go public in the future years. For example, it's too early for you or any of us to purchase it as a publicly traded firm. But what impact do you anticipate on the market? When something is ultimately made public, does it sort of suck all the air out of the room from everything else? I believe it will undoubtedly be a turning point. And, I've always thought of boom cycles in a fairly straightforward sense, which is that you have to be thinking a little more conservatively, which may be moving closer to the finish when the IPO window actually opens up. Now, OpenAI hasn't gone public yet, but I don't think the AI industry will necessarily stop when they do. However, in the end, it might kind of open the window for everyone else. And at that point, I believe I would start to pay attention. Long-term ownership of OpenAI will, in my opinion, be highly sought for. Many investors will be interested in doing that, but I believe that due to the demand, other businesses will test the waters of an initial public offering. And it's likely that many more businesses that aren't quite as good as OpenAI will go public. At that point, I believe you may begin to more honestly raise the bubble alarm that we are currently hearing. I believe you stated that OpenAI is too big to fail in your notes to us. Is that some kind of a calculated move on its part? It looks like that's where they've been heading, though I'm not sure if it was intentional from the start. Everyone in the industry is now connected to OpenAI. If you look at the alliances they have formed with companies like Broadcom, NVIDIA, and AMD, it almost feels like Oracle. Every one of them has a stake in the success of that business. In my opinion, This too-big-to-fail idea raises the question of how OpenAI will continue to fund all of the massive initiatives they are discussing. Through all of the alliances they have formed and the businesses that have a genuine stake in helping them and seeing the business succeed. They can continue to finance it. Therefore, I believe it has likely been part of the strategy look if we can tie everyone up and make sure that everyone kind of needs us to succeed in some way to keep the stock rallying.